on me. And I know you are all the great things I can do. I'll see my possibility. Just hope something started healing me. Nothing but green, I'm just ahead of me. I'm looking for the job site. To the hell, I'm on the best over my mind. I'm on the vision of my destiny. And it keeps me out of because I know what this I need. It's so much more than I can see. It's so much that I can become. That's why I'm reaching for the sun. I see my possibility. Just hope something on the me. Nothing but green. Ahead of me. I'm looking for the dollar sign. To the head of the back. I'll be I'll be there. Nothing between us. But I'm looking for the dollar sign. To the head of the back. Look at my knees. Looking back. Cause I'm headed down like nothing but green like I said of me. And I'm looking for the dark side. To the head of the back. This life is nothing but okay. And I'm aiming for today. Nothing but green like I said of me. And I'm looking for the dark side. To the head of the back. Oh no, 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 no. I'll be there. Nothing but green.
All right. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen wa Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim wa ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna Sayyidina Muhammadan abduhu wa rasuluh sallallahu alayhi wa sallam wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'een. And if I'm grinning like a Cheshire cat, it's because I'm looking at that sunshine that's sitting up there with me. So I'm sorry if I get daddy stupid, mashallah. it is what it is. Okay. All right. So now let's get even more serious. Alhamdulillah, our anthem actually for the wealth creation and preservation. Welcome to everybody on YouTube, on Facebook, on Blog Talk for joining us. That the persuasions actually is our anthem for that. People get ready, but Facebook will knock your stuff off, and YouTube will knock your stuff off if you play music that don't belong to you. So I didn't want to kill it off, So we went with that possibilities. The great Hijra and the lead Hanuna on that one. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen, putting it down. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. What we got? Madullah Muhammad, time for prayer. After prayer, I will share. Oh, okay, I got you. Alhamdulillah. Inshallah, if we have the opportunity, our broadcasts are shortened. The idea is to be around an hour. We're not being hard and fast about it now because we don't know where the Spirit going to take us on this thing right here. So, but in any case, Assalamu alaikum, my daughter.
Alaikum assalam rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Looking beautiful as always.
Thank you. This is a rest day. I'm getting back to Mondays being my off day. And then shifting into working just 3 days a week in hair and building out my other business. So creating boundaries.
Yeah.
So today I had some rest time and to really get myself centered and ready for today's conversation because I want to be fully present. So
I'm
feeling good.
It's like talking about creativity, well, the name for what you do, in that dimension, Nap Turner. People ain't ready. They not ready for that.
No, they're not.
Nap Turner. Go ahead and give them a bar or two at least on it, just a little bit. And the why. You know what I'm saying?
Nap Turner was, at the time when I started my hair business, it wasn't popular to wear natural hair, right? And so there were always these little issues around, is it professional? Is it this or whatever? And so I just felt like, hair has always been a statement of revolution and rebellion for us, to take back what was ours. So Nap Turner is an acronym, natural and proud.
Mm-hmm. All right. Alhamdulillah.
Yeah.
Wonderful. All right, let's get to this. Did you have a chance to look at or listen to any of the YouTube clip that we played?
Absolutely. I actually follow Wall Street Trapper.
Oh, okay, good. So that's good.
Mm-hmm.
So, mashallah, look, I'm still trying to work out the details on how to share video, blah blah blah, and also I have to check out on the regulation in that respect as well. If it's cool on StreamYard, well, since I'm connecting with Facebook and the others, if it's cool to actually share YouTube videos on that. It seems to me like, hell, it's already up there. So if I just put on another platform, why wouldn't it be?
I think also what you should do, just to avoid for editing purposes, just you can drop the link to the YouTube into the chat.
Oh, okay.
The chat room. Yeah. And then people can, even if they don't see it before, they just have access to that link to watch it post.
You see, that's why I get you here. That's why I got you here. That's why I pay you the big bucks. so I just did what you told me to do. That's all I got to do.
Go. Good stuff.
I'm a quick learner. Good. Okay, so that's what we just listened to on the earlier portion of because Wealth Creation Preservation begins 4:30 p.m. Pacific time. And so the link there is for keys to build generational wealth with Wall Street Trapper. That's what it is. And it's on the Earn Your Leisure, all one word, earnyourleisure.com, Earn Your Leisure platform on YouTube. And it was just today that I saw the lead in for it. And the young man that's on there, one of the interviews, his name is Rashad Bilal. So he got to have connect with us.
Oh yeah, because Bilal don't just pop up.
Yeah. It's like Bilal, that ain't for everybody, right? so you got that. And what else was it? Your mother was your mother. For those who don't know, that's Yolanda Mahassan Shuaib. She was looking at. She was looking at power. I know that's a whole nother conversation, but she was looking at power, and she was looking at the credits for power. And as the credits were rolling up, it was so many Muslim names. You know what I'm saying? It's like a bunch of shaheeds and this and that and that. You know, so it's like that's on that set, right? I know that Rockefeller, that way back, their father was a part of the whole New York Harlem community and the like. And of course, we know all the Tribe Called Quest and other folks like that. So it's like in that, all the way in that mix, right? Go ahead. You got a comment? Then I'm gonna go to something very specific.
Yeah, my comment is I think that we downplay the influence that the experience of the Nation of Islam had on us as entrepreneurs, had on an impact on culture for do for self, building empires, creating communities, and building wealth. And it has influenced, it's a part of the very thread of how we move in business. And I'm talking about not just, African-American Muslims. I'm talking about the African-American cultural energy was largely a part of, the proactiveness of the Nation of Islam of its day. And that some of those components are things that we hadn't quite known how to merge them in the transition. And because in many ways the transition took on, for lack of a better term, a Catholicist type of idea, or went back to what the Christian church in which we left and bled those things over into it, when in actuality we should have freed us of those things. And some of us survived it. Some of us are still trying to shake it, and some of us still stuck. You know, so all of those layers of how that plays out into the spirituality of money is really a big part of, you know, what we have to start to really dissect as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Alhamdulillah. You know, in going doing the research that I do in prepping for each of the broadcasts, I ran across another of these episodes from Earn Your Leisure, and there's a brother that he goes by the name. His brand is 19 Keys. 19 Keys.
Yes, I know who that is too.
And so he's got this little headpiece that he wears. It's like a straight takeoff of the fez of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. You know, with this.
That was very intentional.
Oh, I know. No, I ain't mad.
Okay, yeah.
No. It's like, no, it's there. And here's the thing: you and I, you know, we're talking about intergenerational wealth. That's no matter where we go, y'all. This is the idea is to understand intergenerational wealth. So here we are, you know, talking about the Honorable Elijah Muhammad and the Nation of Islam of his time in that respect. And that so as he talked about the idea of do for self was always in his family, but the how-to wasn't always in his family. It's that so just from this conversation, you get that he grew up in a Nation of Islam like family. And in this conversation, in this particular interview, I don't know which one it was, but it's one that Earn Your Leisure and with 19 Keys on it. After talking about the 10 times he got arrested or something like that, but he still don't have a record because the intelligence he was operating on was how could I beat the case? And so he beat the cases. And he says, so I don't have a record, you know. But the point is that he had to learn through all of that. It's just like there's got to be a better way, basically. Even though he grew up in a Nation of Islam family, according to my read of what he's saying. And the point is that he came to understand that it's truly about learning application. It's about learning how to put what you know to work. How does that work? How do you get results, etc.? So you, in your respect, to put a light on you, of course, you grew up in a quote Nation of Islam family. In that sense, you were born right there, 73, right there, coming through. Yeah. So you went through the transition and everything that comes with that mixed. Okay, and I thank Allah that you're still sitting here smiling with your daddy.
Alhamdulillah.
God is most gracious, most merciful.
Man,
we got some stories to tell. All right.
Yes,
so let's move on from that. So what does that say to you about, because now you're an entrepreneur, you're helping me in my business itself. And actually, my admission is that you're in a field that I didn't point you to any Camila, you ought to do more of this, and Camila, you ought to do that. And no,
right.
You have your own autonomy and you drove, and now I'm benefiting from your own explorations.
Yeah, I think that a great deal of it was the community life that I was honored to experience in my formative and teenage years. We had systems. We had the EOE committee. The Evening of Excellence committee was a great deal of my learning on how to organize, how to create spaces, how to create an opportunity for young people to shine, an opportunity for us to feel special, places where people where businesses were spotlighted by doing our sponsorship booklets. And so I was a teenager on the committee with these heavy hitter women that were spitting out these events on a regular basis. So I learned systems that allowed it to streamline easily to where when it was time for me to plan an event, it was like, okay, you got to do this, you got to do this, make sure this is in place. And so it became such second nature for me, which also led me into the nonprofit arena. And I entered into the nonprofit arena as my first job because my mom had refused on me working service-based jobs. Service-based meaning like I always wanted to be a waitress, right? She was like, no, we're not doing that. I was like, I can't work at McDonald's. She was like, no, we're not doing that. And so through a member in the community who worked for the city of Oakland, Sister Laura, I can't remember, Sister Lenora, connected me into Parks and Recreation through City of Oakland. And the rest was history. I got my first job working at Defirmary Park. And my work ethic stood out with the person who ran that rec center, that everywhere she went, every summer I had a job. And from that, those skills that I built allowed me to start creating programs for nonprofit organizations that were in the Oakland Unified School District. But the root of me doing that started with MGT, the soldiers that are part of our community who taught me that, look, if you're going to show up, even if it's small, you got to have your budget. You got to make sure that you're accommodating these people. It has to look clean. It has to run. You got to have a schedule. So these were things that were just ongoing. So I use those skills until now. But my connection was through the resources of my community. My community was my resources. Hanifa's resources was through a community member when she got her job as a lifeguard and working at the pool through Harith, she had these connections. And so now we have to look at, so we talking about generational, Go ahead.
I said Hanifa is her sister. That's just say keep going.
Oh yeah, Hanifa. Yeah, that's baby sister
Shuaib Peters. Yeah, go ahead.
Dr. Shuaib, right? Shuaib Peters.
Yeah.
And so when we look at this legacy, we have to sit back. And when I think about my son who is 26, let's think about what are the resources that he had to plug into. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen for Mahir Abdul Haq, who gave him his first job working with farmers. But my child is an artist at his core. There's nothing about him that says paper and pen unless he's drawing or creating art, right? But he did have a link into someone in the community that offered him a job and taught him because my child is very smart. But then he also had Brother Rashid, Rahimahullah, who taught him trumpet and gave him and drums, and he further took that skill to do band at high school. And in his love for music, which is just straight up genes between me and his father, he had a love, so it was nurtured in that way. And his grandfather. I always thought of you as as the dancer, right?
Oh yeah, that's right. Me and JB.
Yes. So these skills at the time, it's really understanding how and where these different nurturing components come in. This leads us into this conversation, right? Allahu Alam. Look, as being my parent, and me being a parent, we do the best we can with what we got.
That's right.
It's you can't show a thing that you don't have yourself, right? So my focus, my understanding about I provided as many opportunities as I could, but I was still at the tug of war with the financial life of raising a child by myself. And, but when I got the coins together, I put him in camp there was an art camp in San Francisco. And I know that was where he learned a lot of his digital art skills that he uses now. So when I found band camp and different things that he could be a part of, exactly.
I gotta hide my look for what are we doing here?
Yeah.
Tell him what
like my son designed that logo for the masjid and many others. Like he just did a music video, full digital animation using just the basic tools that he has, right? And when you start to think about the resources, if I had the level of understanding early on in his high school years, I probably would have homeschooled him and nurtured that and been able to put him with other mentors to do this, that, or the other. But that wasn't in the plan. It just didn't happen that way. But now with my understanding of like, your gift has, like, I'm not going to be here forever, son. Like, I need your gift to feed you. And because it gives you joy, you feel excited when you create. You love to sit for hours and block everything out and create beautiful pieces of work. So now I'm pouring my energy into creating spaces and providing him an opportunity to allow this gift, that the gift that each and every one of us that are on here right now have, that gift is here to feed you. So I knew that Allah gave him that for it to feed him because it gives him happiness. Like if your job makes you happy, alhamdulillah, that's great. Do it. Get your gold watch, retire. Wonderful, because it makes you happy. But if you're doing a thing that's not giving you joy, then the food is not truly nurturing. Like what you're working for is not really nurturing your spirit.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Let me jump in. No, alhamdulillah. No, it's fine. It is what it is. I mean that in the most positive way. That's for everybody. Yeah. So I'm saying people popping in, popping out. They just talking about blue, blue, blue. Yeah, it's like, and they click, they get, mashallah, mashallah. Go where you get what you need, mashallah. But the idea is that when we talk about the womb of intergenerational wealth, it's like that's what we're talking about is wealth. It's like when people think about wealth and you make the mistake of thinking that wealth is only money. That like last week when whoever it was we listened to, he said, I ain't leaving my children no money, blah, blah, blah. And it's good for them, for me not to leave them any money. Good for them. But it was also brought up in comments, and I believe we also pointed out that the wealth is not just the dollars. You got your social connections. You got the experience that comes with growing up in that particular womb. So that is also, and this is what we have to understand about wealth as well. Wealth is not just those paper dollars. They're not just those tokens. The wealth is which if you lose the material things, you have the wherewithal because of what you know, the skill set, etc., the integrity, the character, the temperament, etc., that say, I can get that back. It's like, that's just a thing. Okay, go on, come back. We talked about failing forward, right? So, but in the interest of course, giving up some technical knowledge, we want to make sure, because knowledge across all the spectrums, right? You have formal knowledge, informal knowledge, you have technical knowledge. Formal knowledge is knowledge that comes from instruction. And when I say instruction, or better said, actually, it means correction. Formal knowledge is correction, just like this. It's like, don't talk with your mouth full, okay? Because don't talk with your mouth full, that's formal knowledge, right? So these things that you might generally call etiquette, right? You've learned that formality. It's a formality. You learned that formally. Say please, thank you, blah, blah, blah. That's formal knowledge. And there are other forms of formal knowledge. Informal knowledge is knowledge that you learn just by absorbing, okay, people do this and people do that and people do this. And so your acculturation, your socialization that comes to you from absorbing activity and experience that you have in the environment, that's informal. Technical is like when you go to a school, trade school, college, seminars, workshops, etc. Technical That's technical knowledge, right? So I want to go ahead and give a little technical knowledge in relationship to what we heard from the author, or rather from the brother, the Wall Street Trapper that was interviewed there, and that's what we used the first audio portion for, is just as a springboard, sounding board for ideas that we want to share. So one of them, he talked about language. I'll go with that part first. He talked about language, and he was congratulated by Rashad on that broadcast, or during that interview, for actually bringing the language to the people that they can understand, like that he saw that as a value. I want to express this explicitly for us to understand that, listen, that while it's sort of like he gave it as a compliment, and he gave it, let's call it, as an informal compliment. So that's a part of it. So it's like, okay, he really appreciated this thing that he does right there, without looking at the thing that he does in a technical way, meaning that's science. That's a tool, which, if you understood that tool, you don't do it just because it comes natural for you. You do it because, oh, that's what I got to do in order to do that. Just like, I don't know if I can use the idea where you when you do hair. I don't know what you call that little piece that you use. What do you call that?
It's just a tool. It's called a sister lock tool.
Okay, sister lock tool. Okay, so it's like, that's the business, right? So it's like, if you don't have that tool, you don't have that business, right? And
you don't.
The copyright, the trademark, and whatever is on that tool, right? So in the same way, the tool that I'm speaking to now is the ability to translate any language of any field into language that you understand, right?
Come on,
and
right.
When you put it in your language, because you listen to them and say, they're quote unquote, they're speaking to the hood, but I'm certain that they do and can also speak to people who have never been near the hood. You know what I'm saying? In order to gain greater wealth and greater depth in what they're doing, and do the kinds of things that they've done. When you see the platforms that they're on, we know that they just haven't been talking to hood people to get to that level. Okay, so you got to know when to code switch, and you got to know how to code switch, and understanding the value of that skill set. All right, so now I'm speaking technically about it. So here's it. So here's my sentence. It's that translating financial jargon into common language and analogous behavior. So you can tell by the way I'm saying this, now we're getting technical about this thing that people can be very casual about. And I'm saying, don't be casual about it. You can be casual about the way you kind of let it drop out there, fall out there, the way you do it, but you got to be very technical about the fact that you have to do it if you mean to be successful. Let me go a little further. It's that, so this is one of the key things. You want to be successful in a given field, a given domain. Well, then you need to learn the language of that domain, right?
Yes.
So what do we mean by language? So this applies to any and everything. Any and everything. We talk about the four birds, business, education, culture, and governance. This applies to everything and all the subcategories inside of that. You need to know the language. But before you take another step, you need to know what is the meaning of language. I know people think they know what the meaning, but we're talking technical. Technically speaking, language, if you know the language of a domain, that means you know what the words mean and what you are to do. You got to know what it means and what to do. So you can use a word like P&L statement, the business talk, right? P&L statement. Okay, so you P&L statement. Okay, what does it mean and what does it do, right? When you have an understanding of what it means, When you talk about balance sheet, what does it mean? What does it do? Cash flow, what does it mean? And what should you do, right? What does it mean? Because we know that words mean what they make you do. So if I'm learning a language, right, then that language, there are particular words. Okay, stop. What does that word mean? It means blah, blah, blah. Okay, stop. And what am I supposed to do in the presence of that word, right? You're supposed to do this. So learning the language means learning what the words and the terminology mean and what you're supposed to do in light of that terminology. Now, the technical translation of al-Islam as we have the sources of al-Islam, we have the Quran, we have the Hadith, the reports of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam.
Right.
Now, our goal is to get beyond just being able to say the words correctly, right? And keep the words function inside of our worship life. You got to move it out of the worship life and move it into the other domains, right? How does what the Quran, what the prophet says, help me in business? How does what the Quran and what the prophet says help me in education? How does what the Quran and what the prophet says help me in governance? How does it help me in culture? Well, you still got to answer the same questions. The Islamic language, what does it mean and what should I do? Where? In business. What does it mean and what should I do in education? What does it mean and what should I do in culture? What does it mean and what should I do in governance? Okay, let's apply this example. The Prophet says, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, "Man tashabaha biqaumin fahuwa minhu." The Prophet said, "Whoever imitates a people is one of them. Whoever imitates a people is one of them." Now, most people have learned who know that, most people who know that, they interpret and apply it in a negative way. They interpret it and apply it because that's the way they were taught by who taught it to them. Oh, you don't want to be like them old Christians. You don't want to be like them kuffar. You don't want to be like blah, blah, blah. Why? Man tashabaha biqaumin fahuwa minhu. Oh, yeah. So I ain't going to do nothing like them. Wait a minute. That ain't the only way to read that.
Right.
What about man tashabaha biqaumin fahuwa minhu, wealthy people, right? So if I behave like wealthy people, then I'm one of them. How come you can't read it like that, right? So you say to yourself, I want to be wealthy, but of course, many people got shot out with this la dunya thing, la dunya. So it's like, come on now, y'all. Everybody ought to see by now, man. Them cats been suppressing and oppressing your aspirations to keep you, on with a nose ring on in order to lead you around to take advantage of your resources and cut you out of reaching your own possibilities, right? So the point is that what does it mean to be wealthy? What do wealthy people do? How do wealthy people talk? What is constantly a part of wealthy people's conversation? What do they always have? Okay, and what does that mean? And what do you do? So once you learn how to do that, then you are on your road. You're already mentally a wealthy person because as I always exemplify when I spoke to this Hispanic guy, I said, hola, ¿cómo está? He said, muy bien, y tú? I said, muy bien, gracias. And he was amazed that I could take the conversation that far. I said, very wonderful, very good. Because when you speak two languages, you become two people. And that's the first time I heard. I didn't act like he blew my mind, but I said I was chill. Yeah, that's good. But shoot, he dropped some serious knowledge on it because men had becoming for who minhu. You want to be wealthy, then learn the language of the wealthy. Learn the language of the wealthy. When you learn the language of the wealthy, meaning know what the words mean. And know what, not to name drop or sound like you heavy in a conversation, but you don't know what the hell to do with that vocabulary. Take that vocabulary, translate it, and then be like them in terms of what the language dictates. Know what their words mean and know what it means for you to do. Last thing for me on that moment, on that point, is that when we talk about language, logic, and sensitivity, that is a formula inside the language of Imam Wadri Muhammad. Language is know what the words are, and his language is also like the thinking that I'm inshallah displaying. It's like his language is also his thinking. So it's like, okay, how do you think about things? How do you think about? Well, that's language too. The way you think about something, that is language. All right. So you get the language and logic. The logic is the expected behavior, the behavioral expectation. So when you understand what's expected by the language from you in terms of behavior, and then you act that way, okay, well, then that's the way that you're going to get the transformation, the translation. I'm going to go ahead and drop a word, transduction, from nothing to something in the domain that you are using that language in. So if you want to transduce your nothing to something in education, learn the education language, logic, and have those sensitivities. Same way with business, same way with governance, same way with culture. The formula is very simply there. So his success, the Wall Street Trapper example, his success is because that's exactly what he did. And what is that? That's one thing. That's one thing.
Right.
Learn the language, know what it means, do according to its meaning, and then now you're on the path and you're cooking up the same dish that comes from the people who generate the language. Go ahead.
Right. I think that, it's the language part is just so big. And I think the words I'm looking for, because I wrote down these notes when you said formal, informal, technical, I can't help but to think spiritual. Like the spiritual knowledge, because the things that we want to, like we always say, learn Quran. Like, okay, we could do that, but then at the same time, not understand the practical applications of how this affects your life, how this shows up. Like, I want to understand business. And the first thing, like right now, that I'm thinking to myself is Shaitan threatens you with poverty. And when we go into the language of it, like, this poverty is not what we're thinking of as poverty, like living in a tent and no food. No. It's like to know that, to think that Allah is not abundant, to think that you can't have, like, to live in the space of this space of lack. It's like this society, this community, this place of America threatens us with this idea, it's not enough of this. Gotta hurry up and get it, or this is gonna be gone. It's so they market that. So we're in the middle of this market of consumerism. Like, how do we get people to buy more? How do we get folks to spend out this paper that really genuinely has zero value, but we make them believe that there's such value in this paper, what we call money, right? And so when we start to look at the blessing of, like, look, I put no bones about it in understanding that the language of Imam Muhammad has allowed me to navigate in spaces that your average college degree individual wouldn't be able to navigate in, right? But you put me in the room, I know how to navigate the room because of the language of my Imam and teacher, Imam Muhammad, right? To really understand how this business thing moves in a way that it is in service to the creator that inspired me with it. Like, it's like, if you're trying to build business that's not directly connected to giving thanks and worship of Allah, then we might as well just stop. Like, and I'm saying all businesses have that. Yeah, might as well shut it down. All businesses are rooting at whatever business you're thinking of. Well, how do I do that for cooking? Yes. How do I do that for clothing? Yes. Jewelry. Yes. Hair. Yes. Like, all the things. All the things are in service to.
Throw something in on that, just as an example, right? the language. What you have the spirit, no doubt you have the language too, but I'm taking advantage of this as an example, right? Because this is one of the things that has to happen, especially among new Muslims who haven't been, swallowed up and co-opted by folks that have another economic agenda for your Islamic life. They got an economic agenda for your Islamic
That's
life.
Right.
Let me not lose my point. So the point is that what we need to do is the whole translation of language. Stop thinking about what I'm talking about in a technical way. Don't think, oh, he's talking about Arabic. Yeah, we need to stop reading Arabic. That ain't what I'm talking about. I'm talking about learn the mental language. Maybe I need to say it that way. Learn the methodological aspect of the language of what you're hearing from the religion. For example, Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said, whoever has an atom's weight of pride will not see paradise. And so a person popped up, they just really knew that, right? You tell them, that kind of attitude, right? They say, yeah, I know, so-and-so, yeah, he loves his clothes and he loves his shoes. And the prophet said, no, that's not it. It says pride. It said Allah is beautiful and Allah loves the beautiful. Allah loves the beautiful. He said pride is holding another person in contempt. Now, if you think because you put on that jewelry, because you put on those clothes, that makes me better than you, go to hell, because that's where you're headed. Because you could, if you have an atom's weight of pride, then that you go in hell. And it's not your clothes or your shoes, etc. No, be beautiful. What does Allah tell us? He tells us to wear your best when you come to the place of prayer, right? Is that what we do?
Right.
So the point is that that's a part of that as well. We kind of at the beyond.
Yeah, but I want to say this point because this is a longer conversation. Yeah,
go ahead.
But here that just along with that is those who wish to oppress, like that. That's what I'm hearing. Like people who feel their insecurities feel the need to shrink other folks in order for them to feel that they are above, right? Like that right there is the mindset that, that's the mindset that has been fed to the American Negro forever, right? Because it's like they know the moment we hit whatever arena or area that once we get in there, it's over. It's one layups all day. Like, oh my goodness, like we can't stop them. They got something else on it, and it's because this part of that has been suppressed for so long. It needs to be expressed. So when we get the chance to express it, it's like, okay, it's boom, it's going hard. Like any arena, like even this whole idea of the economic understanding amongst the trap. Okay, so let's just take, the trap talk. Trap talk is literally
right.
The D boys that was like, oh, it's something to do with this money. Watch me put my sauce on it from what I used to do.
Right.
And put it into this, and they end the game, and moving in silence because that's how they did it in the streets. It's we got to learn how to move under the radar. But so that whole culture of coming into the stock market, coming into franchise and real estate, and all of those other things that they are figuring out how to flip it. This is changing the whole game too. About social media is changing the entire face of millionaires and wealth. Because
you said a bunch of things that have
triggered. Go ahead.
In the most positive way. You young enough to hold on to your idea, but if I don't grab it now, I'm gonna lose it. So you make me think about Derek Grace. The last thing that you said. When you said changing the face of it, right? You talked about games, you talk about, moving that from over here and moving it over here. So Derek Grace, who I know strikes us like that. This dude got tattoos all on his face. It's like in one of the ways that was one of his ways of burning the boats. You know what I'm saying? Say, oh shoot, I know ain't nobody gonna hire me with a face like this, right? And so he said, I'm locking myself into now. I got to make my money on my own, right?
Yeah.
So he's got game, you know, whatever the name of it is, you know, the bank game, the family bank game, something like that. And now he's on video games. He's on video games and branding inside the video games and what have you. I mean, literally, that is changing the game. And so that is what is happening. One more thing on 19 Keys, throw it back. In the very brief piece that I listened to, a part of his interview, where he juxtaposed the idea of how when other people think about where are some other places I can go to make mine, to do mine, to really make it to be successful and to become wealthy.
Right.
Other places, the doors are open in other domains, whether it might be financing or whether it be real estate or whether it be stocks or whether it be tech or what have you. All those doors are open for other people, and it becomes a part of their formal, informal, technical acculturation. I mean, that's normal for us. For us, right, when we think about wealth, the images and the examples that are set before us all have to do with celebrity, athletes, and artists, you know, in terms of music and the like. Those other doors is like we ain't really even thinking about. And that's what the culture has situated for. These are the best doors for you in order to make that big money. And so they keep providing those models to keep inviting you to say, this is the way, this is the right way for you to go. This is where the family picnic that you're coming to is. There's Jay-Z, or there's Kanye, and there's so-and-so. It's like, yeah, because we want you to stay over there. Right. I think I'm going to have to say something. I'll bring back, you can come back to the point that you were making. But there is definitely something I want to close out with to invite us to change our scope in terms of that. But go ahead. Yes. I know I jumped in on you. Go ahead.
Yeah, my point was pretty much made, but we do need to understand how to change our scope, but then also as the adults paving the way for young people who have a desire to achieve things. You know, I'm trying to say this as gently and lovingly and softly as I possibly can. But your 401k is not going to do that.
For real. That's for real. Yeah. No, it's
your not. 401k is not going to do that.
There, even if it's there,
it's there, it's barely going to do it for you. How about that?
Right. It's not going to pass for a generation, right?
Right. And so this understanding of wealth, the and this is where the spiritual part of how we invest in the young folks. I'm the money part for me I'm on the road there to getting there. Like I'm building it and doing, but I know that I have educated enough young folks on how to do this, put this together. And that's also, that's my savings account for when this transition of my life happens, that I've created spaces that when they have questions about, okay, well, what you do? What you trying to do? Oh yeah, try this. What about this? Show up with what it is that you know. It's like, don't try to live through them because you're like, well, if I had this talent, I'd do this. No one cares. You don't have that talent. Let's now either you're going to provide your level of support and encouragement on that end of it, and then we won't have to think twice about how young people will honor us because there's value to your existence.
Absolutely.
And they will honor the elders who are before us because they have showed up with value to our lives. So when I think about pioneers in my life, when I see them, I honor them because there's such a wealth of things that I got from them that it wasn't in this way of do your life this way, do your life that way. No, it was a value in the encouragement. It was a value in, check in with like, where's your happiness level? Like, or creating spaces for me to fully express my gift. So the community creating space, I can't help but to think about my child because it's my child. But the community creating spaces for my son to create logos for events or come and perform at this, they're investing in him, and he feels invested back. Like, okay, well, when they call, I'm showing up. And I've noticed that has happened more for him the more that the community has called upon his gifts. Like he drive from Sacramento just to make a moment to show his face in the community that has invested in the gift that he has. So how are we creating spaces instead of circles of no's? N-O, circle of N-O. Like, how are we creating spaces other than those type of circles? Create more circles of yeses as opposed to circles of no, and they will continue to show up. Like, this is the age where they want that validation. So if they keep this social media, who's giving me my likes on social media? Who's giving me my likes on Facebook? Unfortunately, that's what the climate is, but that was always there. I think about my teen years, it's like you want your friends to like you. You wanted to be with the in crowd. You want, so that was my way of getting likes, right? So now this generation is like, who's giving me my hearts on my picture? Who's doing it? But if the negative things show up, and that's where they're getting it, this like, oh, that's who's feeding me. So they run in the direction of those lower level mindsets. Whereas if we create the space that says, hey, we have Anas at our school where this graduation, they're thinking about college now, where they may not have thought about college because they want to consistently be a part of this big, huge event of this graduation, or just let me graduate high school. And plus the business, they want to give business scholarships and, loan free to the young people. They feel like, oh, this community is investing in me. I'm showing up. They're going to see me in the building. My name will always be on the list when they think of what they need to do. So I'm saying that these are more ways that we have to do it. All the gifts, the Eve gifts, came from majority young entrepreneurs and other businesses in the community. You don't think them young people going to forget that? They are going to remember that our masjid bought 50 units from our business. We showing up. Do you see? So we as adults, we're the space creators. So we have to start to create spaces for them to plant themselves and nurture these plants, as opposed to them trying to be planted in concrete. We got to give them fresh soil to show up and give and water them so that they know, look, we value you. Here's what, and this is how we're showing value. And they'll feel an accountability of a current consciousness. The Jiminy Cricket is the community that will be like, hey, like, yeah, that might look good, but then there's this value to it, show up a lot better.
Let me jump in on you. It's something in your genes that keep pushing you. I understand. So I know what's going on internally, spiritually. Okay, look, let's close out giving people an opportunity. Anybody have a quote unquote brief comment? I know we bust out the preacher mode in a lot of you, but if you have a comment that's on quote unquote on the subject matter, Blog Talk, you can push one on your phone. We'll take an opportunity for you to make a contribution. And I am seeing the posts, the comments. If you have any questions or comments that you'd like to make, inshallah, we'll read them out for you. And so that's what it's going to be. I think that we are going to have to keep this broadcast not not less than 90 minutes because it's just so much. Because I'm looking at other material. Now, if you have any comment, now would be the time on Facebook or YouTube. I can see on Blog Talk. If you have a comment, push one on your phone. Absent that, there's another technical piece that I'd like to share before closing out. If I don't see any comments from anyone, okay. So then there's all right. My Monterey Bay Sister Georgetta, Alhamdulillah, Rabbil Alameen, a great contributor. Those Eid gifts that we're talking about, she had a lot to do with that as well. Georgetta.
Yes.
Assalamu alaikum, Imam and Camila, alhamdulillah. Just real quick, I know it's at the end of the program, but from last week, I had a question about the comment that was made about not leaving he wasn't leaving any wealth for his children.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted you to. That's what I wanted to comment on it last week, but I just want to get that in real quickly this week, or maybe touch on it next week on your comments on that what's said about that last week, inshallah.
So you're saying you want to hear something said about that?
Yeah, right. You know, he was saying that he told his children he wasn't going to leave anything to them. You know.
Yeah, and he was treating it like it was. He was treating it like he was doing him a favor or something, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah.
And so I was just trying to get your point of view on that.
Yeah. Well, there's many.
I don't know if you recall, it was part. It wasn't your comments. It was part of the you played, part of the tape that you played.
Yeah. Well, the bottom line is this hadith from the Prophet. I believe I read it last week, but I'll read it. I'll read it again. This is Sa'd ibn Abi Waqqas radiallahu anhu. He said, the Messenger of Allah, peace be upon him, visited me in the year of the Hajj of farewell on account of the illness. He was suffering. He was very ill. So he said to the Prophet that his illness has affected him such that he doesn't expect to live too much longer. And he said, but I have property and I have no heirs other than my daughter. And he said, shall I give 2/3 of my property away in sadaqah? And the Prophet told him no. And then he asked the Prophet, should I give away half of it? And so, meaning that I take the whole. He said, but what I'm going to do, I'm going to take 2/3. I'm considering taking 2/3, giving it in sadaqah, and then the 1/3 to my daughter. And the Prophet said, no, don't do that. So then the man said, well, half. And then the Prophet replied again, don't take half of your wealth and give it in sadaqah and leaving your daughter half. The Prophet said no. So then the Prophet said 1/3. He said 1/3 is great, or it's a lot, meaning that it's a lot to give in sadaqah, right? So like that'll be plenty to give 1/3 in sadaqah, which means that 2/3 would be left behind for his daughter. And the Prophet went on to say, it is better to leave rich heirs than to leave them poor, begging from other people. There's nothing that you spend, like Camila was just saying, that, whatever business you're in, intentionally dedicated to the service of Allah's plan for humanity. So if whatever you're doing you can't see the way for it to serve Allah's will for humanity, you might not be in the right business. Okay, so
right.
so the Prophet is saying, and following that up, he said, "There's nothing that you spend, that is nothing that you give in sadaqah, desiring by it the face of Allah." So apply that to what Camila said about business. Do this for the sake of Allah. It's that thing that you do, that you find joy and pleasure in doing, happiness in doing, but you dedicate it to the service of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Like that little Drummer Boy song, right? okay, desiring by it the face of Allah, but that you will be rewarded, even if it's a morsel that you put in your wife's mouth. Okay, so if the Prophet, peace be upon him, is saying you will be rewarded if you just take your hand, take a morsel of food and put it in your wife's mouth or your mate's mouth, we can do that, then that's a charity, that's a blessing right there. So the Prophet is saying, whatever this guy is talking about, mashallah, he had good knowledge now, no doubt. But this is where we are. And Islam said, no, that part you were cool until you said that. So in terms of that, for as far as our values, it said no. The wealthier, the better position you leave your heirs in, the better it is. And let me go ahead, since I'm here on that. Thank you, Georgetta, for the question. Because it gives me an opportunity to also to go with go to a Robert Kiyosaki statement in one of his. He's the Rich Dad Poor Dad fame, and he said people think that people who don't pay taxes are tax cheats, right? He said no. So when those people who don't pay taxes, with respect to what we're saying, is because the tax system is designed to do things. That's the design. So we know everything ain't being played right, but it's not consciously created to rip people off. Okay, I know people say it is, but I'm not going to stay there. The point is that what the tax system does is that, look, we the government don't want to do this. So what we're going to do is, if you do that, we'll give you a tax credit for doing it, and so you won't have to pay income tax on that you spent for this or that or the other. So they talk about real estate, where a person who's in real estate and they're providing housing by developing apartments, etc. Well, the government is not in the housing development business, formally speaking. So it's like, if you do that, then we give you tax credit because you're providing housing where now we, the government, don't have to do that. So you get a tax credit for that. So the idea is that the tax system is designed to see, like, even like masjids, when you have masjids, there's a lot of things that masjids need to have done, and they can't all be done through zakat, right? And actually zakat is not really for infrastructure, quote unquote.
Right.
Zakat is supposed to be for the poor, right? So we're all operating on a hybrid form of everything in the world that we live in right now. But the point is, given a formal Islamic system in that sense, then this sadaqah, Allah is saying, I will reward you. If you plant a tree, I'll reward you forever. Allahu Akbar. That's Allah, right? Allah has his own tax program, right? So when you do that fi sabilillah, for the sake of Allah, then you're getting your reward from your Lord, and you will get it in this world and in the next. Now that's a promise. So the idea is just having the right attitude about it. Our system, mashallah, Islam is the best system. Let me go to Zarina, and we're gonna be checking out soon. Zarina, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Well, alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh to both of you. This is so beautiful. I'm really, really enjoying it. Alhamdulillah. What I would like to get or know how to get is information for Camila's son. His name is
Ibrahim.
After a senior moment, but yeah, I would just like to get his information in terms of being able to do a logo, because I didn't know that he did logos, and we are looking to have one made. So if I could, however I can get his information, I would love to do that, be able to do that.
Yeah, no problem. His website is peaceloveandflight.com. Peace, P-E. If you could, I don't have access to write in the comment, Baba.
You can put it in the chat. Okay. I don't have you that way.
I don't have a way to type it in there.
I'm gonna type it in right now. Go ahead, run it.
Peace, love,
C-E, all one word.
Yeah, peace, love, and flight.
Love, A-N-D, flight.
Yeah.
Is that correct?
.com.
So you're putting that in the comments on.
I'm putting it on. It's going to show up on my YouTube, show up on my Facebook, and all that. So, peace, love, and flight.com. And I can text it to you after. I believe I have
I also have your information as well. I could get it to you.
All right, you'll get it.
Right. Okay. I appreciate you, both of you.
Alhamdulillah.
Thank you so much.
Alhamdulillah. And we know you got
and so I know.
Too. Alhamdulillah.
Yeah, I know that. I think that there's, it's being on my spirit now that, I think that there's a understanding of we're going to have an extended conversation about we might need to do just a whole workshop, like in real time. Like we might need to do an ACU workshop. Because it's just it's a big deal to really kind of understand how to navigate this business mode, because sometimes people think that businesses are supposed to look like Amazon the moment you come out the gate, and that's a no. And the difference between the side hustle and the business, because some people are afraid to invest because they're living off of only what they're bringing in. So then it's a matter of finding, well, what are these other funnels and ways that you can create some additional wealth that can now, that's what you use to invest. Like you make your money from your job, but then the excess of whatever the side hustle is strictly for investing. But we have to understand how to start to utilize. There's so many tools available and ways to do it. But that's
right. So, alhamdulillah, thanks, Zarina. Yeah, we were, and that actually, that's one of the unexpressed notes that I actually had today. One, that conversation that you just alluded to that we need to have, and we will have that conversation. Also the issue of, I talked about the P&L, the P&L, which is the income and expense, and then the balance sheet, which is assets and liabilities, and then the cash flow. Also that chart, right? Those three things, that's language. And if you understand the role of that language and translate into how does it operate in life in real time, then those are the fundamentals, hammers, saws, and screwdrivers of wealth building. So we definitely have to get to that. So inshallah, okay, we just got to put a comma on it, and we got to check out. All right.
But let me also put this in there real quick too. I mean, I'm a businesswoman. I have to put my plug in right quick. I do business and entrepreneurial coaching. And I have been a certified, I'm going through my next level of certification as a purpose coach. And so I provide those services. If you need that one-on-one, step-by-step, what's my plan? Where do I go? How do I start? All of those things. Then, hit me up.
That's right.
Because this is what I do.
How do they get to you?
LoveisAlwaysTheSubject.com.
LoveisAlwaysTheSubject.com. There you go. That's easy. That's easy because everybody's always thinking about love.
Always.
All right, everybody. Thank you so much. Thank you, Mahasan, Bilalians, Shuaib, and alhamdulillah. Next week.
Been great.
Somebody asked the question, how often do we post? So for right now, which ones do I do? Saturday.
We're doing every Monday.
Yeah, every Monday, this particular broadcast. So just you can show up for that. And then on the others that I do, Saturday, Sunday, and Wednesday, different flavor, different focus, etc. Just keep your eyes open. All right. Love you, everyone. Take care. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Alaikum salam.